Hello and welcome back to the Perfunctionist channel. So a few days ago I got a message from someone on Facebook. It's a private message, so I'm not going to post a screenshot of it here. Basically asking about the Powercab and wanted to know more about the Powercab. So a few months ago, you may remember I did a video on the Powercab. I think it was entitled something like, is it loud enough for live use? Today, as per requested, I'm just going to talk about some of the basics of the Powercab and how to connect it and set it up. So if you don't know already, the Powercab is a Line 6 product and is their FR speaker, as you can see next to me here. So like all other FR speakers, you can plug your Helix directly into the Powercab and monitor your sound. So you've got some kind of sound source on stage, you can hear your tones. You can also plug other modelers into the Powercab. So if you have, say for example, an Axe-Fx or a Atomic amplifier or a Kemper, you can plug that into the Powercab as well. It doesn't have to just be the Helix. Although using the Helix you do get some more functionality, which we will look at in a moment. One such bit of functionality is probably the Powercab's party piece, which is that it can model speakers. It has speaker simulations. So that is different from IRs. So IRs are where you are modelling the speaker cabinet being mic'd up by, say, an SM57 in a whatever particular room. That's kind of what an IR is, a digital snapshot of that setup. Some people have described it as a model of what your amp sounds like when it's recorded, because you've got the component of the microphone as well. So what the cab simulation is in the Powercab is meant to simulate what the amp would sound like, what the speaker would sound like in the room, standing next to, sort of sitting next to your amp as you would hear it in the room, as opposed to as you would hear it through speaker in a control room where it's being mic'd up by whatever mic you wanted to mic it up with. So I guess you kind of get a coloration of your mic choice, but the speaker simulation kind of allows you to hear it as you would hear it if you were standing next to your amp listening to it through the actual cab itself. So front of house IRs are great, but if you want something next to you, maybe you're not on in-ear monitors and you want to hear the sound of a Marshall setup or a Fender setup, you can put those models, the appropriate models, into the Powercab, so it sounds like you've got the actual amp next to you. So let's talk about connections. Probably the simplest way to connect your Helix to the Powercab is with the bog standard jack cable. That will send your signal from your Helix to your Powercab, but won't send any kind of instructions. So you can either send your complete signal that you've created on your Helix, with IRs or whatever cab simulations you've got on the Helix, directly to the Powercab and just have it set to flat, and it will just recreate your tone through the speaker. You can still use the speaker simulations on the Powercab, but it just means you have to turn off any kind of cab simulations you've got on the Helix off. The only thing you can't do if you're using a jack connection is control or change any of the speaker simulations on the Powercab via the Helix. You can do it through the knob on the Powercab, but that does mean turning around and physically, manually turning that knob. One of the cool things you can do when connecting your Helix to the Powercab is change your speaker sim via the Helix per preset. So if you have one preset that is, say, a Marshall sound and another preset that's a Fender sound, and you want to switch between different speaker cabinet simulations, or different speaker simulations, but when you change those presets, you can set the Helix up to do that rather than having to physically turn the knob on the Powercab yourself. But for that you will need a different type of cable. You can get the Line 6 L6 cable, but for me that's a bit too expensive. You don't necessarily need to buy that if you don't want to. I got mine from eBay, but the type of cable you will need is an AES cable. I think the full name is AES/EBU Digital Cable. So it kind of looks like a microphone cable, like an XLR cable. I guess strictly speaking it is an XLR cable, because an XLR cable is defined by the jacks, the XLR part of the jacks, as opposed to the actual cable itself. And I've had some comments of people saying that you can just use a bog standard microphone cable, or they said XLR cable, to connect the Helix and the Powercab. I haven't actually tried that, but I've also read that people have tried it and it's a bit temperamental. It generally works, but sometimes it doesn't. But for me, if I'm playing on stage, I want it to work pretty much all the time. I don't want to have that risk of it not working. So I just end up buying the AES cable off of eBay. I'll stick a link in the description below to where I got mine from. That's not an affiliate link, that's just where I got it from. And you can get different lengths. Obviously longer will cost you a bit more money, but it's definitely a lot cheaper than buying the Line 6 L6 cable, which is essentially the same thing. I chose to get mine in the colour blue, and the reason being is that it just differentiates my AES cable from my microphone cable. And yeah, I don't want to accidentally mix them up and use the wrong one by accident, so I deliberately went for the blue colourway so that I could differentiate it. So let's talk about the Powercab itself. There are essentially two types of Powercab. You've got just the bog standard Powercab, and you've got the Powercab Plus. The Powercab Plus is what I've got here, and it allows you to use the functionality that I just mentioned, where you can switch the different speaker simulations via the Helix. The standard Powercab is literally one you just plug in via a guitar jack cable, and doesn't have as much control. So it's more for people who just want to plug in and play. Maybe you're just using one speaker sim for the whole gig, maybe one amp for the whole gig. So it's a lot more simple. But the Powercab Plus does allow you to have that more functionality. So you still get the different speaker sims from on the normal Powercab, but the Powercab Plus just gives you more options and more versatility. The one I've got here is the 1x12 speaker. You can now get a 2x12 speaker, and you can run stereo effects into it. Personally, I would probably rather get two 1x12 speakers or Powercabs, because I think on the 2x12 the speakers are so close together that it kind of sounds like one slightly louder speaker. I like to have kind of slight separation between the speakers on stage. That being said, the 2x12 is probably a bit louder, so if all you need is a bit more oomph, then the 2x12 is probably for you. It is a little bit bigger and a little bit heavier as well, but I think compared to a normal guitar speaker, normal 2x12 for sure, I do still believe it's very much lighter. Alright, let's talk about the Helix. So here's my layout for the Helix here. I've called it PC JCM 800, so it's clearly a JCM 800 model. PC just means Powercab. I specifically made this preset to go into to be used with the Powercab, so to be used not necessarily on in-ear monitors. So the amp choice itself, the actual preset itself, is not particularly important. It's more about the outputs. So this line at the bottom here, you'll see this symbol for the output. Let me go to that one actually. Where are we? Oh, we're already there. Okay, so that is your output that is being sent straight to the Powercab. You can choose it by clicking on it and then going to digital. As it starts off by default on multi, then you just go down to digital and select that one, and then it goes to the Powercab. This line above it is actually my line that's going to go to the front of house. So if I'm on a gig where I'm not in ears and I want to use the Powercab to monitor my sound on stage, that's what this line's for. That will go to the Powercab. This line here will go to the front of house, or if I did happen to be on in-ear monitors, I can probably use that one as well. So you don't have to do this. You can go straight out of the Powercab, and there is a feature on the back of the Powercab where you can plug an XLR out and send that to the desk, and that will work fine. There are ways you can choose your microphone setup and so on. We'll talk about that. It is in mono though, so you'll only get a mono out. If you're happy with that, fine. Most people should be happy with that, I think. This one here will be the one I've kind of made here. That's going to come out of the outputs, the XLR outputs on the back of the Helix is in stereo. So for the front of house, so it depends on if the front of house guy wants stereo or not, if he cares, or if there's even any space on the mixing desk. Okay, so let's talk about some of the settings we've got here. So if I go back then, so I'll scroll along to the output, to the Powercab. We start off here. Panning, I've never actually used it. I'll just leave it on center. Level here, so you'll notice that's quite high up. I can't remember what the default is. I think it's 0 actually. but you see it's quite a high level there, 16.3 decibels of boost. And the reason I've done that is because what the Powercab likes to see is a nice, reasonably hot signal. Okay, and that's also the reason why I've got a gain block there. Let's go along to that gain block. In fact, on that one, I'm just adding 3.8 decibels. I could probably, if I've got enough, I'll just use one or the other to get my my gain, or to get my kind of boost. I've even got my big volume knob here set all the way up, so consider that. And what will happen is if I play something, you'll see this flashing light on the left side of the Powercab. Check this out. So there's a light on the left side of the Powercab. You'll see it's mainly flashing green and kind of touching on amber a little bit, which is fine. That's kind of the perfect combination of colour that you want. You want it to be essentially in the amber, flicking maybe between green, and you don't want it to go into the red. So, in fact, let me see if I can try and turn this up a bit. So if I turn this gain up here, it's 3.8 at the moment. Let me turn it up a bit more. You can see that the Powercab is clipping, it's going into the red. So we don't want that. So that's the reason you want to have these kind of, gain blocks, or, if you do it on here, either a gain block or the output on the level on the output. If one's not enough, you can add the gain block and have more output if you need it. And obviously you can adjust this as well. If I turn this down, this is the output will be. Will go down. So we want to have that reasonably high. I've got mine up all the way. Okay, let's page along. All right, so this is where the fun stuff is. This first one here, Powercab remote. So this is where, if you're using the AES cable, which you can see plugged in at the back there, well, cool thing is, first of all, it can take the signal and the controls as well, the remote controls. So we want that to be per preset. So if I'm going to go between the JCM 800 and this deluxe reverb here, if you have a look at the Powercab, when I switch over, you'll see the light on the right, which is currently red. Red just means it's the, I think it's the vintage, they call it the vintage speaker, which I think is meant to be their vintage 30. When I change to the deluxe reverb, it changes, I think, to the cream back, so it goes to, I think it's like a beige-ish colour. It changes colour, basically, so check this out. Oh, so it goes to a yellow colour. So, yeah, but you can see between the Marshall and the Fender, they change colour. And what you'll also notice is that the word flat doesn't change. If you manually change the cab simulation using the knob on the right hand side of the Powercab, then you will see the name change. We're currently in this, I think, 000 preset, the very first preset. The preset itself doesn't really matter. I haven't actually made any presets, but you can change which cab sim you want to use remotely. Powercab mode, you want that to be set to speaker. Flat voicing, I think that's only if you're in flat mode, FR mode. Okay, speaker select is 1+2 link. You can set that to either be one Powercab, second Powercab, or them linked together. So if you've got two Powercabs, you can connect them together and get like a kind of like a 2x12 thing going on, or it's more like a 2x1x12 really. And like what I mentioned earlier on, where I said that if I was to get if I wanted it in stereo, I'd rather have two 1x12 Powercabs than the 2x12. That's what that would be for. Here is where you pick which speaker simulation you want to use. So currently set to cream back. So if I move this along, you'll notice on the Powercab that the colours on the right, the colour on the right hand side will change as well. So if you did want, I don't know, a Marshall amp with the Essex amp, which I believe is the one in the Vox AC30, an Alnico blue, I think it is, then you can change to that. So this isn't really a tone video, but let's check out some tones anyway. So here, I think we're currently on the Fender Deluxe Reverb sound, so here we go. To the Marshall. So there you go, there's my video talking about the basics of using the Powercab. Now I must say that I do use the Powercab whenever I use the Helix, but I'm usually on in-ears and I don't really use the Powercab as like to monitor on. I just use it if I haven't got my ears on. I just want to have a little noodle during sound check or something like that. Sometimes I'll use it to maybe turn up a bit, and so the people in the front row can kind of hear my tone coming from my amp. I kind of like that. So I will sometimes use it for that, but in terms of me hearing my tone, it's usually on my in-ears. So in a way, I'm not really the best person when it comes to using the Powercab as a backline amp. But just from using it now, it sounds good. I like it. Can't complain about the sound. I haven't done a A/B test with the real amp yet. I did have plans to do that, and maybe I will still do that. Let me know in the comments below if you'd like to do that. But I want to start doing a little section where I kind of just include you guys a little bit more. So here is a comment that I got from my double tracking video a couple of weeks ago. This one's from Ivica Glavocic. Please forgive me if I've butchered your name there. You mentioned the Haas effect when it comes to double tracking. Basically, it was really interesting. I'd never heard of it before. So generally speaking, in my ears and from what a lot of other people who commented on the double tracking videos that I've done, they seem to prefer using the delay sound as opposed to the double take effect that you have on the Helix. And apparently, yes, in your ears that will sound better, but out front, in the front of house, there could be some problems with that to do with I think it's to do with time and how long it takes for certain for things to kind of reach you, and I think we're getting to like phase territory there. But yeah, it was that mentioned the Haas effect. I still need to look into that. That sounds fascinating. So thank you for bringing that up. I will look it up and maybe I will do a follow-up video on that. From my video about the 3.15 firmware update, Clyde Childress basically giving me props. Great playing. Good to hear the Helix in different genres. I'm glad you enjoyed that. Thank you very much. I've had a few people compliment me on the videos. Most comments are quite complimentary, and I really do appreciate people giving me some love. I hope I'm giving you value with these videos. So thank you very much for that, and for everyone who's said some kind words, thank you very much. And let's do one more. In the last video I've done, which was YouTube short, so I'm getting into YouTube shorts now, where I'm hoping to do some condensed stuff. Like, people want to know, how do you do this? If I can explain it in less than a minute, because a lot of these things are very simple to explain, then I will maybe do a YouTube short on that. But Dennis Hayes said, I found that very appealing. So yeah, peeling off plastic off of new products is very appealing. It's taken me 4 years to do that on the Helix, and you probably notice some slight, not water damage, but some kind of watermarks there, which I'm having problems cleaning off actually. But still, it was very appealing, and you seem to like that as well. And yeah, some more people showing me some love and enjoying the removal of plastic on gear. So I hope you guys enjoyed that, and yeah, I'll try and get some more of these comments in future videos, and until then, have a good week, and I'll see you in the next video.